The country of Ireland is home to several species of swans, and swans play a role in a number of Irish myths, including this story. The swan-shaped constellation Cygnus may have had special significance to the ancient Irish. Some people believe that the chambers of Newgrange, a 5,000-year-old Irish stone monument, were designed with the shape of Cygnus in mind. The Children of Lir. Lir was a lord of Ireland who lived in times long ago when magic was commonplace, and all the great people of the land possessed powers of enchantment. He had 4 children who he loved dearly, a daughter named Fionnuala, and 3 sons named Id, Fiachla, and Con. The children's mother had died when they were all very little, and Lir had been very saddened by her death. Afterwards, he had not thought much about remarrying, but had consoled himself by spending as much time as possible with his children. He was a wonderful father to them, always looking after their needs, playing games with them, teaching them to swim and dive in the pond nearby, and telling them stories. Then one day, Lir said to his daughter Fionnuala, "I am thinking about remarrying. Your children need a mother." The High Lord Bob Dirk had 3 foster daughters of marriageable age. He would like me to marry one of them and bind our houses together in kinship. "We don't need a mother," Fionnuala assured her father. "We have you, and besides," she added, "I'm always looking out for my brothers to make sure they don't get into danger or trouble." But Lir had made up his mind, and not long after that, he married one of the High Lord's foster daughters, Aoife. Aoife was not just a beautiful young woman. She was a very accomplished sorceress. She liked the fact that her new husband was handsome and had a fine house and was known throughout the land for strength and bravery. But unfortunately, Aoife had very little interest in her husband's children. In fact, she was jealous that Lir's children commanded so much of his time and attention. She felt abandoned when Lir ran off to splash and swim with them or sat up late at night in the children's room, telling them stories. "I'm a beautiful and accomplished young woman, and yet I will always take second place in the eyes of my husband," Aoife said to herself bitterly. "Lir will always love these children more than me. If only there was a way to be rid of them." And she imagined the wonderful life she might have if somehow the children could be made to disappear. As time went by, Aoife's feelings of resentment and jealousy only grew worse, and she began to dream up schemes by which she might be rid of Lir's sons and daughters. Finally, one day, Aoife went in disguise to the nearby village, and there she tried to find someone she could hire to kidnap the children. "I will pay you very well if you will carry them off and abandon them in a distant place," she offered. "You will have no blood on your hands." But she could find no person willing to help her carry out her vile plan. All the villagers were too fond of Lir's children or too afraid of the punishment they might face if they helped her. "The children probably would have found their way home eventually anyhow," Aoife said to herself when she failed to find an accomplice for the kidnapping. "But I know a way to make sure they will never be underfoot in the house again." One day, not long after that, Aoife offered to accompany the children to the pond for their daily swim. Lir was pleased to see his wife finally taking an interest in his daughter and sons. "Thank you, my dear," he said. "I know that you will watch the children carefully and keep them safe and sound." But Aoife had no interest in keeping the children safe. As soon as they were all out in the water, splashing and playing, she raised her magic druid's wand, and uttered an incantation. No sooner had the words left her lips than the children began to change form. "What's happening to me?" Kon cried out in alarm as he watched his feet, puddling under the water, suddenly flatten and become webbed. "Finuala, your hair! It's gone all white!" cried Fiachula. He tried to point at his sister, but his fingers all seemed to be suddenly strangely fused together. Finuala stared in alarm at her long dark hair, but it wasn't dark anymore, nor was it hair. Her hair had become white feathers. "It's Aoife!" Finuala cried, staring toward the shore. "She has put an enchantment on us!" The children struggled and thrashed in the water, trying to fight the magic spell that was transforming them. But a few minutes later, no children were anywhere to be seen. The pond was empty, except for the 4 white swans gliding upon the water. "For 900 years must you stay as you are," Aoife said with satisfaction as she put her wand away. "My spells are strong. No one will break this enchantment until a time in the distant future, when some stronger power comes into this land." And she walked away from the lake, back up to the house, happy to be rid of the children of Lir. Aoife pretended to be confused by the children's disappearance. One minute they were there, the next gone, she cried in fake dismay, and Lir at first believed her to be truly upset. But soon it became quite apparent what had actually become of the children. For though Aoife's spell had given the children the appearance of swans, it hadn't removed their ability to speak, and when Lir appeared at the pond, Finuala called out from the water, "Father, father, help us! Look what Aoife has done to us! She has put an enchantment on us!" Furious and panicking, Lir tried to use his own magical powers to break Aoife's spell. When he found he couldn't, he plunged into the water and held his swan children in his arms. "I'm so sorry, children," he sobbed, stroking their pure white feathers. "I can't believe I've let this happen to you. I will fix it, though, I promise," he vowed. And Lir tried. He pressed Aoife to undo her handiwork, but it seems she couldn't. Or perhaps she just wouldn't. "The spell is too strong," she insisted. "But never mind, the children look happy enough, swimming on the pond." Then in frustration, Lir called upon the powers of his magical ancestors and cast his own strong spell on Aoife. "Be gone," he cried, waving his wand at her. "May you never set a foot in my house or in this land again." Instantly, Aoife was transformed into a phantom-like air spirit. A giant gust of wind came and swept her away, and nobody did ever see her again. After that, Lir continues to try to find a way to free his children from Aoife's enchantment. He summoned all the greatest enchantresses and sorcerers in the land, but the spell remained. No one seemed able to break it. The children seemed doomed to remain swans for 900 years. At least, though, in those early years, they had their father nearby, as well as each other for company. In the night, Finuala would gather her brothers to her side, eat, and Fiachula would snuggle under her wings, and she would lean her neck protectively over Kon. Many nights, Lir would come down and make a bed for himself on the shore of the pond, so that he could be with his children. Before they all went to sleep under the stars, he would tell the swan children bedtime stories, just as he had when they all lived together in the house. Other evenings, villagers and members of Lir's household would gather together at the edge of the pond and make bonfires there, and the swans who still had human voices would sing along with the bonfire songs. And so things went for 300 years. But although Lir had been blessed with an exceptionally long life, as magical people were back in those days, eventually he grew old. One winter, he became ill, and a few nights later he died. The next summer, a drought made the pond dry up. Then the 4 swans, who had been Lir's children, took to the air, with Finiala in the center, and Id and Fiatula on each side, and Con just a little up ahead. They flew north until they reached the Sea of Moyle. There they landed, and there they stayed for another 300 years. The Sea of Moyle was a cold, rough place. Wind stirred up waves that threatened to separate the 4 sibling swans as they floated in the night. Sometimes they lost sight of one another in the blinding snow of winter. "We must stay together," Finiala insisted, "and we must speak to one another so that we don't forget who we are." "I wish Father was here to tell us stories," Id sighed. "I wish it was not so cold." "We can tell stories to one another," Finiala suggested, "and we can snuggle together to stay warm." And so they snuggled together, with Id and Finiatula under their sister's protective wings, and Con tucked beneath her long swan neck. The siblings told stories, and they sang songs, and they tried not to drift apart or forget that they had once been human children. Then one winter's night, it grew colder than ever on the Sea of Moyle. The swans woke to find themselves stuck fast in ice that had frozen around them. "I can't move," cried Fiatula. And neither could the others. They cried out and struggled and beat with their wings, and in the end, they all managed to break free, but in doing so, left behind feathers and bits of torn skin. Then with Finiala at the center and Id and Fiatula on either side and Con just a little up ahead, the battered swans flew away from the Sea of Moyle, looking for a better place to live. The swans who had been the children of Lir flew southwest until they reached a small island in the Atlantic called Inishkurola. Here they landed, happy to find the climate warmer and the conditions more pleasant than they had been on the Sea of Moyle. By now, the children had been swans for more than 600 years. They sometimes forgot that they had ever been human. They spoke less and less, but Finiala continues to try to keep the group together and to remind her brothers of their true identity. "Remember," she said, "that this curse will not fold forever. Keep hope in your hearts. We need only wait until a power comes into Ireland that is stronger than Ifad's spell, and then we will be freed." One evening, the swans were swimming in an inlet off Inishkurola when they heard the sound of a church bell pealing. "What is that beautiful sound?" wondered Fiatula. "I don't know, but I feel that we should go and find out," said Con. The swans climbed out of the water. Together they climbed up a grassy path. At the top of a hill, they came to some stone huts. A man was coming out of one of the huts. "What is the source of that beautiful sound, that lovely music?" Finiala asked the man. He was taken aback when he realized that a swan was speaking to him in a human voice. But nevertheless he answered Finiala's question. It is the bell of St. Patrick's Holy Church. The man who was a priest said. Then, how is it that you come to have a human voice? He asked Fionnuala in amazement. Long ago, we were human children, the children of Lir, answered Fionnuala, but we were transformed by evil magic into swans. Many people tried, but no one was able to break the spell. Perhaps I can break it, the priest said gently, and he made the sign of the cross over each of the swans and blessed them. At that moment, the last minute of the 900th year passed. Immediately, before the eyes of the holy man, the 4 swans began to morph back into humans. Because the swan children were now 900 years old, they died almost as soon as they had completed their transformation. However, they did so happily, reaching out their hands to one another and with smiles on their faces. And the priest saw the twinkling lights of the souls of the children of Lir float off together up in the evening sky. There they joined 2 other lights, the lights of their parents' souls, to form the shape of a starry cross in the heavens. And if you look up into the sky on a summer night, you will see that starry cross still there. Or perhaps, if you use your imagination, you will find that the cross of stars really looks more like a swan flying across the night sky.